Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I am Chris Clements.
And it's documents here, documents there,
documents everywhere. So where do you think they'll wind up showing up today?
Well,
and let's frame. What are we talking about?
Okay.
Documents.
Well, we know that Donald Trump
took
some documents.
Donald Trump has completely lost his grip on reality, says National Review.
Yeah. He took some documents that he should have had and had them at Mar-a-Lago. And then he said, I'm not going to give them back. And so they had to do a subpoena, they had to do a search, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then lo and behold.
It wasn't really a search, it was a raid.
A raid.
In the morning. It was that was a little bit overdone.
Yeah. So they do that, and then lo and behold, turns out there's some documents in Joe Biden's office, the Penn Biden Center. It's a university think tank.
It's in an office building in the middle of D.C.
And then
an unsecure office building
and then
in the middle of D.C.
Further review shows that he's got some in his garage.
Behind his Cadillac. Or no, Corvette.
And then he's got some, even others in his residence. They didn't say exactly where they were, at least I don't know. And then lo and behold, Mike Pence says, I've got some too, sorry. It's like, how is it possible?
How many does Bush have, do you think? How many does Obama have, just blocked from the White House?
Yeah. I mean,
boxes and boxes.
I saw a funny tweet. Somebody had tweeted that we haven't seen anything yet because Carter's putting classified documents into every Habitat for Humanity house. This is either nothing, and it's a classification issue, or it's a real problem, or somewhere in between. But what I can't understand
we know it's been a problem for sitting presidents because they take things and they move things to say in Obama's case for the library that he's trying to build in Chicago, which I don't think still has been approved. A bunch of boxes and boxes and boxes of documents were sent to a warehouse there that wasn't really very secure, and that was a big issue with the National Archives. And no one's really spoken about that.
Right.
I heard in terms of Donald Trump and Mar-a-Lago versus Joe Biden, Donald Trump was the sitting president. He could classify or declassify whatever documents he wants. Mar-a-Lago, from what I understand to people who have been there, is like going to the White House. You have to submit your Social Security number, and it's a very secure place, although having it just strewn around the office is not good policy or good practice.
Right.
The biggest difference here is, I believe, is that Joe Biden has had these documents for the better part of the last 15 years.
Well, he's had
going back to when he was a United States Senator.
Yeah.
And what's also interesting is people like is many of his Senate colleagues coming out and questioning how in the world could he have these documents as a United States Senator and getting them out of the Senate, out of the SCIF. Because my understanding is you only get a classified document when you're in the U.S. Senate two ways. One, someone comes into your office with a locked briefcase and hands it to you, and then you hand it back to them, they put it in the briefcase, they walk out. Or you go into the SCIF at the bottom of the Capitol and you read these documents, and of which you cannot take anything out of.
Right.
Those are the only two ways.
Yeah. I mean, and then Pence, again, why does he have them? And the other thing is we don't really know what they are. We know there's classified markings on a dozen documents from Pence's residence. We know there's classified markings on, a handful of documents from Biden's residence, and then a handful from his, transition, the office he used between being vice president and running for president. But I mean, it's just like, I don't understand. I mean, and Pence, it looks bad for Pence because in November he said, I've never done that, and that would be a real problem of trust. Oops.
Yeah, why do
you have them then?
Yeah, and why do you think he ordered his attorneys to go rummaging through his safe?
Well, good for him for
because he's running for president.
Yeah, he's like,
and he doesn't want.
If there's anything that's out there,
he doesn't want anything to be leaked out that he did something improper.
Yeah. So then it then raises the question, I mean, are there classified documents all over the place? I mean, how many senators have done this?
That is a big question.
How many House members have done this?
How easy is it for you to get docs out of the SCIF or to have people leave docs
Right. The
in
fact
your
that,
office?
I mean, it was one thing
and for you to take them home
there's one thing for
and leave them laying around.
for this to be an issue with Trump leaving the White House, taking stuff with him, whatever. Not good. Another thing for Biden to be leaving the White House as vice president and taking it with him. But then we find out there's documents that were there that he's had since he's been senator.
A senator.
All of a sudden things get a little bit different because it's like, wait a minute. There are 435 House members, well, 434 right now, 500 or 100 Senate members, which means there's 535 people out there, plus people who have retired, hundreds. There could be classified documents all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think for Biden, the plot thickens, however, in terms of his dealings and his son's dealings with both Ukraine and China. And I think that's where the rubber's going to meet the road in terms of what these documents are, who's seen them, who's been perusing over them. And by the way, his son Hunter rented his home, that same house, for $49,910 for as he was getting a $50,000 check from Burisma in Ukraine every month. So there's a lot. I mean, for the president to say there's no there, well, it turns out there's a lot there.
Yeah.
And why aren't you being forthcoming,
I mean,
number
there's
one,
at least
about
questions.
how they got there, and number two, what they were.
Yeah, there's at least questions, and and questions that are fair questions.
These aren't like gotcha questions. These are legitimate questions.
I mean, one of the questions.
And meanwhile, his press secretary is. I mean, if it's not in the binder, she's not going to read it, and then she's referring everyone to the White House counsel's office, and it's just not Peter Doocy from Fox News who's hammering her anymore. It's everyone, and yet there's no answers,
right,
to anything.
Well, they can now hide
They're
behind
kind of like
the special
just
counsel shield.
I don't know if they're showing her the door or leaving her out to dry, but it's pretty sad every day to even listen to it.
Yeah, the it's a mess.
It is a mess.
But
it's not a mess that's going to go away because of what we said earlier. Okay, President Obama, what do you have? President Bush, what do you have? And everyone's going to be looking for documents.
Well,
and then what do we what type of safeguards do we need to employ and enact to make sure this doesn't ever happen?
Well,
it doesn't matter if you agree with the classification or not. That's irrelevant. It's on the document.
Well, but I think it is. I think we do need to have a debate about the classification process. I mean, my guess is that there's things that are marked classified that are absolutely not classified. Well, I think that there's a little bit of government overreach in the sense of, oh, this is our way to prevent people from seeing stuff. I mean,
sure.
You can't, if the press says, we want to see this, and the government says, well, we'd love to show it to you, but it's classified. State secret, sorry. I mean, if they're doing that with too many documents, then we're not having a transparent process. So it could be that too.
Well, in the meantime, we have documents relating to the assassination of JFK that are still classified.
Yeah. Don't get me started. Although a bunch came out.
A bunch came out, but there's still a host that probably implicate the CIA that are not still classified.
Right. Well,
so,
you saw that in that last release, the CIA had said that they had no dealings with Lee Harvey Oswald. That is just horsepucky.
Well, the facts don't bear that out.
At all.
No.
At all.
Not at all.
How did we get on JFK? Oh. It always comes back.
It's going back to your point about why are some things classified that really 50 years later have no bearing. Everyone's dead. What does it matter? And then we have some documents that are sitting in a box in the back, behind a Corvette in the middle of Delaware. And what are those? And my
guess is that some of those are completely benign.
Yeah,
they are classified. Yeah. They have a classified marking that is not necessary.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying. I think that we overclassify.
Well, and I think that's probably what Trump felt about what was in his office as well.
Yeah,
I mean, these
I
are
can see that.
benign. I've looked at these.
A letter from Kim Young,
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, some of them were probably memorabilia. Oh, and by the way, they're in my secure office. What's the big deal? And I'll give them back to you when I feel like it. That
or when you come raid me.
or when you come raid me. But the interesting part about that is now the Justice Department's hand has been forced with the special counsel, with basically saying, hey, we're coming to your house and we're going to go through everything. And so, again, it's the drip, drip, drip.
Yeah.
And what we've been talking about on this podcast for the last several weeks is, why is this happening now? And it's happening now because the deep state, the deep, deep, deep state, has decided they've had enough of Joe Biden.
Yeah, this will be his last term.
And
they're making sure of it.
Yeah, they've had enough. They've had enough of how he is interacting both with the Congress, with our allies, with the general public. And there's, as I've said time and time again, there's only so many narcotics you can pump into a man to make him read a teleprompter.
Right.
And it's getting to be too much for the deep state.
There was
for the professional class of Washington.
Where is it? I saw a poll. Here we go.
Oh.
So this is Democrats in the presidential primary so check this out. In July of 2017, so the year, is that right? No, that can't be right. Must have been July of last year? But anyway, this month in June or January, a poll for the Democrat primary, Buttigieg is leading Biden 23 to 18. Warren has 18. Sanders has 15. Ocasio-Cortez has 6. Klobuchar has 5. Harris has 2. I mean, this is pretty.
Pete Buttigieg is
He's
their
got
answer
a
to Joe Biden.
5-point lead over Joe Biden, who's tied with Elizabeth Warren among Democrat presidential primary voters.
Well, I mean, it's so early, it's not even worth recognizing, but we all know who the deep state political class is pushing for right now, and that's Gavin Newsom.
Yeah,
and that's
he wasn't tested in this apparently,
and that's
or he didn't make the cut.
That's
But
a
Harris
foregone
at
conclusion.
2, that's embarrassing. You're the vice president of the United States, and you're at 2 among your base.
But she is universally panned by both sides of the aisle. Kamala. Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. And then Pete Buttigieg, we did a posting the other day on LinkedIn about this fair I-10 stretch between Phoenix and Casa Grande. They didn't give us the grant to widen that stretch. Now the state is going to have to do it itself, basically, because we didn't have enough bike lanes and pedestrian walkways to satisfy the grant request.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh, did you read about this?
I did not read about this.
Unbelievable. And the mayor of Casa Grande, our friend Craig McFarland, who's been on the show,
I'll bet he was pretty unhappy about that.
had to report it back to the city council that the highway administration, the Department of Transportation, did not go forward with the grant. And when he was talking with an aide to our other good friend, Sarah Mark Kelly, where is Mark Kelly?
I don't know where he is.
Yeah, nobody knows where he is.
Although he was at the border with Kirsten Sinema a couple weeks ago.
So he says, it looks like you didn't have enough, bike lanes and pedestrian walkways. And Craig says to him,
for that stretch of I-10 is what they're talking about?
Yeah. And says to him, you've got to be kidding me. It's a freeway. There's no.
How would you do that?
You can't do
You can't
that.
put bike lanes on the freeway.
So it shows how this administration, especially Mayor Pete, they want to push things like light rail, bicycles, anything but the car.
Yeah. Anything but a internal combustion
engine, which is not going away anytime soon. I don't know if you heard this news, but GM is going to be spending about $1 billion on a new V8 factory in Michigan.
Are they?
You know why? Because they can count.
Yeah.
Because they know,
they're
that the electric cars that they build for North Dakota don't go very far this time of year. And it's going to take several decades before we reach that point.
Well, especially because the charging, I mean, they have a charging station problem.
Well, they have a charging station problem. They have a charging velocity problem, and they've got
A battery storage problem.
A battery storage problem, which is not going to be answered anytime soon. And guess what? All those cowboys and cowgirls in flyover America want their V8 trucks.
Yeah.
They're not buying electric cars. They're buying their big gas guzzling V8 6.2 liter GMC Ford massive amounts of.
I've put myself on the wait list for both the Ford F-150 Lightning and the Tesla Cybertruck.
Hopefully it won't take a week to charge like the Hummer.
Yeah. Well, we're going to find out which one, because I'm on the wait list for both, and they both have said, oh, we're going to start production in 2023. Well, the F-150 Lightning has started production, but I didn't make the cut this last year. We'll see if I make the cut this year. I mean, I can't afford to get both, so we're just going to have to see who comes first.
Well, don't try to tow anything behind the Ford Lightning, especially a boat, because you'll only go about 80 miles. Right. And then you're going to be stuck on the way to Saguaro Lake thinking, where do I find a charging station?
At least on the way back.
Or maybe on the way back. But that's a true story. There's been people who have tested the towing capabilities of the Lightning, and with the max towing capacity rated behind that vehicle, and guess what? 80 miles, 70 miles.
Yeah.
So the death of the internal combustion engine has been greatly exaggerated for the things that people enjoy doing. And kudos to GM if they can find a more fuel efficient, faster fuel efficient, more powerful V8. Great. There'll be a market for it.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. The market needs to decide.
Right.
How do we get on this?
I have no idea.
I know, but that's why we call it ranting.
Oh, we got on this because Buttigieg is beating Biden.
Yeah, Buttigieg is beating Biden, and Buttigieg is ruining our Arizona with his lack of attention to I-10.
Because there's not enough bike lanes.
And I'm so glad I don't need to make that drive anymore. For those of you who have to, I feel for you.
We're sorry.
Because if there's an accident on that stretch, you're done. It's over. You're going to be there for 3 hours. And the federal government doesn't want to do anything. Thankfully, we've got some state representatives and guys like Eli Crane and Juan Ciscomani who are going to try to fix this on the federal level.
Well, we know that...
Well,
the governor approved
Mark Kelly won't do anything.
The Governor Ducey last year approved a big chunk of funding.
It was a big chunk of money. They were hoping that the federal
was going to
match it.
I got it.
So they needed the matching funds. So right now, the big debate at the legislature is, do we do it ourselves?
Right.
Because it has to get done.
Well, and we'll get into this more as we get through the session, but there's been a little bit of a tumultuous start between Governor Hobbs and the Republican legislature. Shocking, I know.
There was a tumultuous start just from the inauguration.
Yeah. So
there were some people who weren't invited that should have been invited, like the Supreme Court, I heard. And
oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's all sorts of like little snafus I heard about after the fact that are just, it's just about protocol, nothing earth-shattering or
policy-driven.
Policy-driven, just protocol.
Yeah. Well, the Democrats haven't had the governorship for a long time, so they kind of forgot.
But then most of the appointees are going to probably be in limbo for a while. They're all coming from nonprofits. None of them have any executive experience, and I think you're going to see most of them slow walked through the legislature, if not voted on.
I think she's got a head. She's in the headwinds on some of these appointees to departments.
Have you read? They're all from the nonprofit world.
Well, there was like the land department. It's somebody coming from somewhere in California. Is that right? I didn't.
I have to look at the list, but I wasn't impressed.
Yeah, I don't understand why. We've got plenty of qualified people for state trust lands in Arizona.
Yeah,
that's a very unique. Really, only Arizona and New Mexico would you have the experience of the type of the strictures around state trust lands.
Yeah,
and how they function and how you can be disposed of and managed. California ain't the place to do that.
No,
It's not. That's not the model to use.
no, California is a mess.
But they don't have any idea. Like, whatever. It'll be interesting. So
But
we'll
the
get
legislature,
into.
they're going to be sending her. I think I read it on Capital Times. Just a clean budget. See what she does.
Capping last year's numbers.
Yeah, capping last year's numbers. See what she does.
She'll veto it.
Yeah, and then the grab the
negotiation.
popcorn.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's divided government. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be fun to watch.
Oh yeah.
Fun to talk about. So more of that to come.
Maybe she'll come on the show. Because didn't you go to her inauguration?
I went to the inauguration, yes.
Yeah,
The inaugural
ball.
party. I didn't
The
go to
ball.
the inauguration itself. I was out of town, but I went to.
And they let
the
you
party.
in.
They let me in.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
the other big news
I
is
probably was the most conservative person there.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt
I wasn't the only Republican. There were a lot of Republicans.
Well, that's a whole nother story. There are a lot of Republicans, but not one conservative.
Not many. There are a couple.
Yeah.
There are a couple.
Yeah. Hey, we have somebody running for the United States Senate. They announced this week. You see that? Were you there?
No.
Gallego?
Oh, Gallego.
Yeah.
He did it. He's done it.
He's done it.
All right. Well,
Against Kirsten Sinema. And she has not really announced. if
she hasn't
she's
announced
running.
anything. Stanton has announced he's not running. So at this
And
point,
Kelly Cooper has announced he's running.
he's running.
It's La La Looney Land here in Arizona.
I don't think at this point. I don't think Gallego gets a strong challenge, and it's yet to be seen what happens in Arizona if Kerry Lake gives up on trying to get installed as governor to run for Senate, or does she defer to Mark Lamb because they had some kind of a deal? Does Kelly Ward run?
Oh, my.
Does Karen Robeson run? I've heard about that.
Well, she
Juan's been
definitely-
mentioned. So,
Juan has been mentioned already?
it
just got
came from
elected.
Yeah, I know. I think people just see a competitive district that he won, and they think, oh, yeah. I mean, he'd be a fine candidate. but I think-
Nothing against Juan, and I think there will be a time for that. But we really need someone with some grassroots and a presence here in Maricopa County, where people know them, they have high likability, and they can run a good race.
Well, it needs to be somebody that's not MAGA, because if it's just
something that's not MAGA, but who can speak to MAGA, who can go to
Yeah.
MAGA and be like, "Hey, listen, here's what we agree, or here's what I want to do."
Because
but
if
then
it's
can go to the chamber and say, "Here's what I want to do."
right, if this becomes a third, and a third, Cinema could squeak through this.
Absolutely.
So,
When you're only appealing to 25% of the electorate consistently, you're going to lose every single time.
Yep,
And that's why Kerry Lake lost.
that is correct. Because she was saying to Republicans, I don't want your vote.
Well, it's not just that, but even just you would consider the business community at large, the chambers, as center right, generally. And yeah, she gave the big middle finger to all of them.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't work.
Nope.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
If politics is math, as our friend David Schweikers often say, it's math. You got to know how to count. And if you can count
and it is
all the people you need to get elected and target those folks and bring them into the fold and give them
That's the
lots of
key.
love and support.
It's math of addition.
Yes,
Not
of
subtraction.
addition, not subtraction.
All right. Well, folks,
We could keep ranting.
we'll
This
keep
was good.
ranting. We will be back.
Robin, thanks
next
for
week.
letting us go over time.
Yeah. Have a great weekend, everybody.
All right, God bless.
Take care.